All right, this is Strange Origins podcast, episode whatever again, 14. We're being very
Woo.
unprofessional, but yeah.
Super unprofessional, but
Um,
equally lovely.
we were talking recently about how we're gonna try and keep it a bit more, laid back and this sort of thing, because right now, I mean, the
Yeah,
world's at a standstill, so there's nothing to talk about. But Mark brought up a
yeah,
good point
yeah, yeah.
just now about was it you said 90%? Like,
Something like 90%, and that was in a Dreamcatcher novel by Stephen King. It was like a really high demographic of people when they leave secondary school, they don't retain their friendship groups. They usually move on to new ones and sort of evolve and become their own people.
yeah, which is interesting, and then you followed that up with a different point, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just talking about us though, because me and you, we have two other friends, and the four of us have been static friends, constantly in contact, all the way up into our like mid-20s now, I
Yeah,
guess. And that friendship hasn't faltered at all. We're as equally close as the day we left secondary school, so
yeah.
to speak, if not
Like,
closer.
and you also said that you think that it's because none of us have given each other a reason not to be friends.
Yeah, I think that's one of them. It's
I
you know,
the only reason I would
yeah,
push back on that is I think it's kind of
go for it.
like the opposite. I think we have given each
hmm
other reasons not to be friends, but that didn't stop us, and it just made us
We pushed
stronger.
through it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that
I think
actually. I think that's a fair point.
there's been many points with the three other friends that I have that are quite close, where each
Yeah.
time there's been moments where I'm like, oh my god, they actually suck, or they thought I actually suck, or we've actually had physical fights or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
hmm
we still didn't think of, hey, I'm never going to talk to this person as an option.
Yeah.
And I think that's
I
what
mean,
makes our
like,
friendship circle pretty good.
in terms of a friendship circle, it's kind of interesting because me and you kind of consider ourselves the yin and yang because the way we look at things, we usually approach them from two different angles that usually leads to a beneficial whole. But a lot
Yeah.
of the times we end up butting heads. And as you mentioned, like in terms of physically fighting, me and you have like fought in like in actual locations across London, just battling each other for I don't know,
You
just
make it
like
sound like some epic
just
thing
on
and
the
not
point.
some
It
shitty
was
little fight.
incredible.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. Headlocks and like kidney punches, I guess,
but
so to speak.
I don't know.
But
It's just partly what I see of it is we have these arguments, and usually if we do butt heads about something, it's not like, hey, you're wrong, fuck you. It's sort of like
yeah.
we know how to argue and debate, and we're like, okay, I'm gonna listen to your point. I
hmm
think you're wrong, but I'm gonna listen to your point.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes we even change our opinion. We go, oh, do you know what? No, they were right. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's
Yeah.
what's
It's
indicative, of a good relationship.
yeah, it's really interesting because I don't know, like when I talk about our friendship group, like the four of us, I always think about yeah, there was this quote about the Wu-Tang Clan that was that we're stronger together, and that's the reason why the Wu-Tang Clan had so many people is because it was just like a fierce unity or like
Right? Yeah.
people who acknowledge that coming together and putting their skills together can reach a whole better whole. And it's interesting that we've rotated through so many different friendship groups, but the four of us together have always been like one static thing. I guess
Yeah. I mean, there's been
we
parts
somehow bring
where
it back.
some of us have drifted apart for a little
Yeah.
bit, but it's
hmm
never been longer than a month. Um,
Yeah,
and we've still had some long friends for a while. I think we've actually made some new friends along the way that
for sure.
who when they talk to us, they go, oh, well, I might not even know you for that long. And we're like, well, we're not like that.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
anyone's gonna
yeah,
not talk to us anymore, it'd be you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
It's true.
I don't know. It's been a strange one. I don't think
Yeah,
I think we've got quite a strong, tightly knit sort of group, which apparently I didn't
yeah,
realize is something that is quite rare.
yeah,
Because the
yeah,
other
yeah.
friendship group that we know, they were friends
hmm
from secondary school as well. So it wasn't even like it was an unusual thing to me. It was only when I started
Yeah.
speaking to some people from our old secondary school that aren't don't even contact the people that they were always hanging around. To me, that's just
Mm.
crazy. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I remember I was saying yesterday, talking to one of my other friends, one of the close ones, and I was like,
hmm
oh man, I need to ring him. I haven't spoken to him in ages. And then I go, well, not ages. It's been like a week. But to me,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
ages. For that friend.
Mm.
So I don't know. It's a mind-boggling one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I remember like a mentality I had coming out of secondary school, pertaining to friends, and like yeah, like you're really young, so you have all of these strange philosophies and mentalities.
Yeah.
I remember one of them was that I would stay friends with people, but acknowledge the fact that all things come to an end eventually,
I remember you
and that I
saying
would
that.
be there in
Yeah.
that friendship until it came to the natural ending. And it kind of worked for me back then because back then I used to think about this thing like okay, that friendship just ended, and it wasn't a bad thing. It was like that story's complete. Like I finished reading that novel,
Yeah.
and man, I love that novel. That story had so many interesting moments. It had its ups, its downs, but that relationship as a package is done now. And if they ever want to reach out again, that's fine. If they don't, to this day, I still got a bit of that. You know, people I'm in
Well,
contact with. If they want
yeah.
to float away, then they can float away.
I was gonna
But
say that
one
that's
thing
where
I've
it comes from
had
our
to,
yin
oh yeah,
yang
go for
thing.
it, go for it.
That's where it comes from our yin yang thing,
Yeah,
because I completely disagree with that. And I don't,
yeah, go for
and
it. Yeah,
like, and I don't disagree as in you're wrong. I mean, I couldn't ever have that
it's a different
mentality.
philosophy, right?
Yeah, like
Different back. Yeah.
that mentality would scare me too much to think about it too
Mm,
much. So like,
okay.
I write it out like sort of like play it by ear, sort of every step of the way. Like, and if it just suddenly
Mm,
ends, it like I usually think about what if this happens, what if that happens, but I would never go into a friendship or a relationship just thinking it will probably or eventually end. Like, and I think
yeah.
that for me. I like you. Obviously, it works for you, but for me, I think it would
Mm.
kind of maybe destroy me from the inside.
Yeah, I see.
Which
No,
is,
that makes sense.
but
You know,
I mean, it's a
if you
testament
come
to
at
your self will, like that you could do that. It's
yeah.
amazing.
I mean, to be fair, you know, like I do consider all four of us mutually strong, like
Mm.
you know, as
We're strong
individuals.
in our different
And I will say
ways.
it's interesting that you've got your ear to the door in that relationship, and you're sort of like reading the winds, I guess, like of like the direction you're going with when you meet people.
Mm.
I do kind of like that. That sort of.
Like
I feel like
it's.
everyone does incorporate a bit of that.
I think so. I think like I mean I'm
Yeah.
always prepared for like if it will end or whatever like that. But
Mm.
like I don't go into it thinking it's gonna end. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree though. I think the mentality like
Mm.
if you have whatever you have to get you through it, it helps.
Yeah. 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 Like I think one thing that's kind of been difficult being friends with me is like I do get socially exhausted after a while,
Yeah, you do have
and it has
a
nothing to
gaming
do with the
bar.
individuals. Yeah, like it has nothing to do with anyone in particular. Like I do talk to like a good couple of people who like, you know, who message me, and I love getting these messages from them. I'm like, oh my God, it's so nice that they're still thinking of me. Like even if
Yeah.
especially in the isolation, that you know they're willing to like message me, see how I'm doing, and I do my best to mutually respond. And then I do feel like a bad person when I don't manage to get around to responding to them.
Mm.
Like I like but another thing I have to think about is that it is, for me personally, like it does, I do have my limits. Like I am human, you
Yeah.
know, like after I send a couple of replies and then, you know, after a while I have to reply again. I don't want to spend my whole day on my phone, especially since
I
I,
think like
you know,
yeah. Um
yeah, go for it, go for it. I'll
I,
let you speak for a bit.
I think you have like a tendency to like sometimes overreact with it. Like
Yeah,
in your
yeah,
head,
yeah.
like if you were messaging people, you'd be like in your own words, you'd be doing it all day. Whereas in
Mm-hmm.
reality, it'd probably take you 2 seconds. But like
Yeah,
it's very daunting. I think is
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think you do what a lot of people do actually is just get inside your own head sometimes about it.
Mm,
Whereas like the time
yeah,
you spent thinking about it, you could have just done it. Like, and I wish
yeah.
I trust me,
It's,
I go through the exact same thing. Like I understand.
yeah.
That's why I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of identify it because it happens with me as well. Like, a lot of people nowadays think they don't have time for most things because they've got a lot of
Yeah.
hobbies or they're doing something. Most people just don't have time. Like,
Mm,
and
yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like, I can't even have time to worry about myself. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is very
I
annoying.
think that's plenty fair. It's another thing as well. It's like when you talk to someone, you know, I know you definitely do this as well. You always want to be considerate with how you respond and try and find like a good reply.
Yeah.
I do it sometimes too, and it annoys me when I half-heartedly like reply to something. But
It depends who I'm
a lot
talking
of the
to,
times I end up doing that sometimes, and
you know?
it's not, you know, it's lame,
Yeah, it
sucks. I need
does.
to,
It depends who I'm talking to.
yeah,
If I'm talking to someone that I know is
yeah,
like particularly like in a vulnerable space at the time, then yeah.
yeah,
But like if I'm talking to you, no,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
fine. Like, it shouldn't be too bad. Like, I don't know. Like
yeah,
that does bring me on to a different thing that I was thinking about today. Is how like
yeah.
I mean I'm quite open when it comes to like mental health stuff, and I think you are as well. Like
Yeah, for sure,
you can feel
definitely.
like quite bad some days and that. But like
Yeah.
I was just gonna like ask you like like I get a bit annoyed as well at how much some people have power over us. Like they would
Mhm.
say something to us, and that can just put you in a bad mood for the entire day. And I really
Yeah.
don't want to be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that sometimes. Like it really does get to me.
Mm.
Like I was just wondering,
Yeah.
like I'm assuming you've had that sort of experience before as well.
Yeah.
You know?
There are so many ways the human psyche can be barraged in ways that aren't always on the nose too.
Yeah.
For example, you'll have a conversation with someone and you'll never know what will actually put them in a bad mood. Like you'll say something that might sound outright like positive, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it triggers something in their brain and suddenly, you know, they're not feeling like outright positive. And it's always good to, you know, like just be susceptible to that, like have your ear
Mm.
to the door, like reusing a
I
statement
think
you said
it's
before, and just like to see, I guess,
yeah, I think
where
it's
that's going.
difficult like nowadays, especially because people either call you being sensitive or being like, like
Yeah.
what's the fucking thing? It's like when you're being like a PC or something like that. It's
Oh, politically
like
correct. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, definitely.
it's like people just saying that sort of stuff, and it's like, well, sometimes I'm just like angry or sad because you said something and it's you didn't think about it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
especially with males, like you're not
mm,
meant to be upset or sad about most things, like
yeah,
about that sort of stuff, like and like people can just say something to you, like for instance, like I'm just in a slightly bad mood at the moment, and it's like it's
yeah,
got nothing to
yeah,
do with like anything that's going on at the moment. But I think sometimes it just happens.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
like people don't realize that the littlest things that they can say can just trigger you and just put you over the top.
Mm,
Like,
yeah,
and it happens like so often. I think, especially to men. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen to women, but I think it does happen to men. Like, in terms of they don't really have someone to speak to about it usually.
Most definitely. Yeah, I think that's definitely an attribute to our group. I remember like one day when I was feeling absolutely terrible. It was like something bad had happened. I was just feeling miserable.
Yeah,
There's always been one park that all of us went to, and
yeah,
it doesn't matter what time people call people up. I remember, yeah, I remember it being like late. It was like late evening. I gave a couple of calls. Everyone showed up at that park.
yeah,
Everyone who could anyway showed up at that park, and we just sat around, drank vodka straight from the bottle, and just in my the way I call these chaotic nights, I guess, because we sometimes end up on these astray nights, is I call it exercising a demon, because
mm,
everyone's got like a problem inside, and maybe the night seems like it was a bad one, but at the end of the day, you were expelling something that was within you. You're getting it
yeah,
out into the world, and then confronting it, and it's nice to have people to confront that with you.
yeah,
As you said, with people's problems and like people approach to it, like no one wants to bring it up. I'm very delicate with who I choose to talk about my
yes, yeah,
issues to, because yeah, you definitely think it's like you're wondering maybe this is too much for them to handle. And I know that's one that you guys once approached me with. It's like maybe if I told you my problems, it would just add to
yeah,
your
no,
pile of
definitely,
issues. But deep down inside, I always want to hear it, because at the end of the day, it helps me understand you a little bit more as well.
mm,
Like say you or like the other two came at me with any issue. Like if understanding what gets people down helps me understand more of you guys as a character, as a personality, even
mm,
if it is just for that moment. And I get more understanding of the whole, like another thing to like approach at from different angles. And
yeah.
I
I mean,
guess
it's a
I don't
different
know.
perspective, isn't it? Like, I definitely agree.
Yeah,
Like, I think like something I've been again. This is like maybe the yin and yang thing. It's like I've definitely been
go for it.
accused of as being like too trusting of people. Like, and
Mm.
my family have always like warned me about people taking advantage of me because I'm
What's
usually
it? The term is you wear your heart on the sleeve, right?
I
Like
guess
something
so,
like that.
yeah. Like
Yeah,
I've always been someone that tries to open up to someone. Like once I trust them enough, I guess. Like,
yeah,
and enough is not always like loads. Like it's not like I have to know them for a year or anything like that. But
yeah.
definitely more recently, I've started to talk to people a bit more like openly, and as to coin a phrase that someone said is like that one of my friends said is like say it with your chest sort of thing. So it's like I'm
Okay.
just kind of like doing that a bit more now, and usually you end up. I mean, not I don't know, but maybe you end up getting like hurt more times you
Yeah,
say it. Like, you do say your feelings and you do say like what what you're actually feeling or thinking at the time. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you don't ever say certain things, then like they're just gonna fucking eat you up from the inside anyway.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true. Like life becomes static, right? Like
yeah,
you enter this purgatory mode where, nothing's really progressing.
exactly, and
Sometimes I
that's
think it's better that you live the way you do, actually,
mm,
with your heart on your sleeve and your honesty,
definitely get hurt a
like
lot more though.
open to the room.
Like, but
Yeah,
then again,
that makes
like
sense.
the opposite way, like I don't know, maybe you do get hurt a lot as well because you end up bottling it up, and then it comes out in these
Yeah.
massive bursts instead of like these massive bursts of emotion, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I don't think either one is better or worse. I just think that the way that
Yin and
people,
Yang, eh?
yeah, I guess the way that people deal with it is just like like the same thing when we go to the park. It's like a therapist. It's like we're talking to each other. We're like
Yes.
just getting it
Yeah, yeah.
off your chest, and not only are you getting it off your chest, you're making it real.
Mm.
Like because
Mm-hmm.
it's all been in your
I
head,
definitely agree with
you
that.
know. And as soon as you
Yeah.
say it, you're like, yes, okay, like this does
Yeah.
like now I can tackle this issue, you know. I don't know.
I remember like one part of society that I really miss on the back of that conversation
Hmm.
is one thing me and you used to do is if we were feeling really low and we'd be
Yeah.
out and about in a very specific town, like well, being Kingston,
Yeah.
we'd go to this super seedy bar.
Oh yeah.
just sit on the bar table and order just hard liquor, and we would spend the whole night until they closed just talking about every problem, like
Yeah.
that we have. And it's one of those bars, one of those gritty bars where people
Like
go
rock.
there and they can
Like
just,
yeah.
yeah, proper rock in the back,
Do
everyone's
you know
like
what's
dressed.
like? What's really strange about
Yeah.
that is I realize that now that those nights that usually happen is just only ever been me and you. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone else
Yeah,
has
they
actually
tend
been
to.
there like for those sort of nights. And usually, I think one
Yeah.
time we actually got really angry with each other, right?
We did, yeah,
Like I think
but we fixed it somehow.
yeah, that was like tequila night. I think that was, like
That was.
so.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember waking up next
That was.
morning going like, why was I angry with him? Like I don't remember. I still don't remember to
I
this
remember that
day.
this discussion, but even the rage that showed up, I think it was like necessary rage. I feel like it was
Yeah,
like catharsis.
yeah,
Like you needed that emotional burst, and the next day you always feel a little bit better,
yeah.
depending on who you show it to, of course. Like, enraged burst to like some people, they're definitely like, well, time to get the scissors and cut that guy out of my life. But
Yeah.
for me, I saw it from a different angle, and I know you do this for me when I go off the rails sometimes and I do something stupid. You
Mm,
understand that, like, to a certain degree, I'm just, I guess,
venting.
like lashing out
Yeah, you're just venting.
because of, yeah, venting
Like I
for
think I've
sure.
done it a couple of times, and you've done it a couple of times at work, where like after work
Hmm.
I've called you up or you've called me up and gone like, look, I just want to rant at the moment and vent, and
Yeah,
you've
for
gone
sure.
like, yeah, it's fine, like about some silly dumbass customer who's done something stupid or something like that. Like I
Yeah.
don't know, that
One thing we used
happens.
to do, I remember, we'd grab a wine bottle and we'd sit by the river or just any random place that we could
Yeah.
find that has a bench. And then we'd down a whole bottle of wine each and just talk,
If if anyone's
about
listening to
everything that
this like
happens.
from a different country, like yes, alcohol is usually the key to all of UK's problems. Like
Welcome to London.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I think there was like a time where I was like particularly down, and I said to you like
Yeah,
I'm just down. You're like, right, let's go grab a wine bottle and let's go and drink in the park. Like I think
yeah.
it was straight after work, and I was like, I didn't even want to do it, and then I did it, and I felt much better.
It
Like
was great. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. You sat
so
with me and we really went in, and it was a
there's
wonderful
numerous
conversation.
problems that we have. Like
I think we ended up sitting on a bridge,
oh
like
my god,
I
yeah, we
think it was
did.
like Putney Bridge, listening to like the saddest song,
It was the most
singing it,
depressing
bro.
song I've ever heard. Like
Yeah.
Jesus.
We were singing it. We were like swigging our like alcohol around. We were
We were
just,
just
I don't
singing it out
know.
loud. Like people were just there, like looking at us. Like I think it was like what one of the lyrics was like, was it "What have I done with my life?" And like it's me and you, like at
Yeah.
25 years old, singing like what we've done with our
Yeah.
lives. Like, and there's some 40 or 50-year-old walking past going,
Oh
"You fucking
man.
idiots!" I swear to God.
Yeah, but absolutely wonderful memory. Like
Yeah,
still.
it's still something
Yeah.
good. Like I don't know, like one of the memories I do want to make is fucking like actually having my birthday this year, like and our birthday, I guess,
Yeah.
like because our birthdays are 4 days apart, so it'd be like good to have that party that we were meant to have with these 30, 40 people that were gonna come, which all got
Yeah,
delayed because of
exactly.
this fucking thing.
Oh man, I just remember how chaotic my house used to be at the end of these parties. Everyone just waking up in the middle of nowhere. I
Yeah,
remember the party where I think you woke up and you had taken everyone's coat and made a little bed.
yeah,
You were asleep in this pile of clothing. Like that was so
yeah.
funny.
Because the worst thing about that is the more people left, the colder I got. Like because I didn't have any covers anymore.
Everyone come by, just tap you, take the coat, and then head out. Like it's yeah, lovely, man.
It's not the first time I've had
Uh,
like issues with coats. I swear in bedrooms. Like, uh,
yeah. Oh man.
I don't know. Like I do remember like fondly actually one time at your house where your mum came over and saw me freezing on the floor and just laid a coat
Yeah.
over me, and I was like, oh, like just thank you so much, sort of thing.
Oh, that's super sweet, actually. That is quite nice.
But yeah, I don't know.
Uh, yeah. I don't like not to segue too much, but there's one thing me and you used to talk about in terms of like approaching stuff and
Mm,
people. And I was talking about this like briefly before the podcast, but I've earned a new motto. So I've earned a new golden star,
yes.
and that is hesitation is defeat. And it comes from this old granddad dude from Sekiro. Sort of one of those like old typical
Is
Japanese
that
like
owl or
grandparents.
is it the old
Oh,
like
oh,
Ishina or something? Like
Ishin.
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
Ishin.
you got
Yeah,
it, Ishin Ashina.
yeah.
And the quote was, yeah, hesitation is defeat. And I
I
thought about this briefly.
yeah.
Yeah, go for
I
it,
was
go
gonna
for it.
say I imagine like in some ways in the way it works in your mind is like it just unlocks
Yeah.
something in your head, and there was like this light
Yeah.
bulb moment, and you were like, oh my god, that's how I play the game. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Credit where credit is due, actually. That quote did come from my Brazilian friend who absolutely loves that game and has a very, like, incredible sort of analysis of things when he
Right.
sees stuff. I will say, but when he said it to me, I was like, man, that resonates. It really does.
Yeah.
And then yeah, like I just think about being at a bar and you're sitting next to someone, and then you said this to me. You had this with compliments, like you don't know when to compliment people,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Definitely.
then you'll overthink it and you'll worry about like the response, and then basically you hesitate, and then the compliment never comes out, and then the
Yeah. I
situation
mean,
passes.
that came from one of
Yeah.
my good friends, like, and well, our good friends is like he said, like,
Mm.
never hold back a compliment. It's like, and I
Yeah.
think most of the time what happened with me is I would hold it back, and go, should I say it? Should I say it? Literally all day, I'd be like, should I just say it?
Mm.
Should I say it? And then that's me hesitating so much that to the point where now it's gone. It would be weird for me to say it now. Whereas if I would have
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
gone,
Yeah.
hey, you look pretty good today, like, and that's it, done. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like there's no downside. It's not like I'm
Mm.
going like, "Hey, you look pretty," ha ha ha, like smile, like pedo smile and all that shit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
For
you
sure.
could
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just say it and move on. And I think that resonates exactly with hesitation. Is
Yeah.
it's the key to defeat.
I'm glad you brought up that, like the Sun Guru's advice. Like,
Yeah,
is I guess how I'm gonna mention him is he's really good with that sort of stuff.
he
He's
does.
really,
Yeah, he does have
yeah,
a good like head on his
motivational
shoulders.
on occasion.
Yeah,
Yeah, when he's not being a penguin. I mean,
yeah, or
like,
like a warmonger. But yeah,
yeah, exactly. Or a saint.
yeah.
We could keep these going all day long. That individual knows who we're
But
talking about for
I
sure.
think like what that's the key though is that I think you learn your social skills from like your friends like hands down
You
easily,
do.
right? And like
Yeah.
sometimes you meet some people along the way that have kind of like got it all figured out socially at least
Mm.
quite easily, like,
Yeah.
and they lack it in some other places. And I like to think that friendships usually are like two-way streets. You help each other
Yeah,
with them.
like you pick up friends, and then someone will say something, someone will say a term like "cool dude," and then you'll be saying "cool dude" for the next month, and you won't realize that,
They
I
came from that
guess
one
that,
person.
yeah, that language came, slowly reintegrate these things from the people we meet. I definitely like that. Like we build the people that we are out of the materials that we've got,
Yeah, and I think it like
to a certain degree.
yeah, it definitely helps like with you, and because you got to realize that no one's got it all figured out anyway.
Mm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
I'll say something, pertaining to you. I think it's sometimes a mood thing, because
Mm,
I've seen you in parties, and like some days you're not in the mood, or you can't force it. When you
yeah,
can't force it, that's part of being human. But other days I've seen you like go into this party and you're like a different human being.
yeah.
You enter, you have vodka, you're like, who's getting the vodka? You're getting the vodka, you're drinking with me, you're gonna drink with Jack today. And then I'll just see you talk to someone random, and then you'll start this like murderous conversation that's engaging, and then you'll floor it. You'll absolutely floor the party, and
I
everyone's got
think
that good
like
energy.
I think that goes back
I think,
to my own like like you know outlook on life. Is that I think everyone's a little bit bipolar. Like, do
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
I
yeah.
think everyone's got like multiple personalities, and there's just sometimes like where I go into a party and I'm like, hey, let's just not be the mopey dickhead Jack who's sitting in a corner
Exactly.
drinking whiskey. Like, let's actually try and do
Yeah.
something.
So just to go on to it, I feel like me and you do get down quite a bit compared to like I don't know, sometimes like right before parties we will go down there and we'll just like force it until it
But
happens,
that's the thing, though.
and
Do you not ever get a
it
little bit
works
like
sometimes.
annoyed at that? Like, I feel like sometimes
Yeah.
every time I do that, I'm not being me, I guess. Or is it a
Yeah.
different
If
side
I
of you? I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because if I do it at a party, usually like it's that trick, when if you smile sometimes when you're feeling down.
Mm. Yeah,
Sometimes it
that
gets worse.
sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah, you actually do bring this like cheerfulness, or
yeah,
I get down there, say, and I'll be speaking to you, or like like the other two, and as soon as they say something uplifting, suddenly I'm on it, like a gear turns, and
yeah,
then I can jump on it. But other times, if I do it and I don't manage to get that happiness, by the end of the night I'll get home and I'll be more miserable than when I started out,
yeah.
and yeah, that does happen.
I think
So
like it's good to
yeah.
open up these discussions, like especially like with what's going on in the world right now. I think more people need to like
Mm.
actually just talk to each other. Like, I think
Yeah.
like the biggest downside, or like the biggest restriction that people think sometimes is they don't want to talk to someone else to bring them down. Like, and I
Yeah.
think they don't realize sometimes that that's not how it works. Like, I don't always hear bad news from someone and go, oh my god, I'm so sad now. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel sorry
Exactly.
for them and I feel empathetic, but I would never go like, oh my god, I'm gonna be exactly the same as them. So I
Mhm.
think like
Yeah.
it's definitely sometimes it actually helps people to talk to other people who are like about their problems anyway. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
helps. I think more people need to do that.
I couldn't agree more. Every time, depending on who you come across, like you do get like genuinely terrible
Yeah.
people out there who just won't listen. And I think listening is a very important thing
Yeah,
at the end of the
listening
day.
is like
Is
is more important than
yeah,
talking. Like easily,
yeah.
you know.
I mean, like, like there have been days where we've gone out, and if you had started your first standpoint is I'm feeling bad, I
Mhm.
will just listen for the first 30 minutes to an hour, like, and
Yeah.
just find out what's the problem, and then I'll give a response on the back of what you've said. And you've done the same thing for me
Yeah.
plenty of times as well. If I have a problem, you'll wait until I've said my piece, and then you'll offer your rebuttal, whatever the outcome was.
Yeah. I mean, I've
So,
heard of it the other way around as well. Like I've seen like recently I've been hearing from friends and that like, the problems they've been going through and that is because of like
mm,
they've been seeing stuff on Instagram or they've been seeing someone post something on Instagram going like, oh, they don't know if it's about them or anything like that. And I feel like
yes,
that's like a big like I don't want to be like the old man going, oh, social media is bad, but it's kind of like like it is kind of sometimes bad. Like it is sometimes
yeah.
like you're dating a girl or you want to date a girl or whatever, a guy, vice versa. Like it just happens sometimes,
Mm.
and you see a post that they make, and you go, "Is that about me? Are they making that about me? I don't know." And then you start questioning, and then you end up realizing you've been on your Instagram for an hour, like, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
ridiculous. So I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, pardon me, sorry about that. But when you look at a post and then, yeah, yeah, when you think it's about you, and then your brain does its own internal battle where it's
Yeah,
like,
like
it could be about
gymnastics.
me, and if it is about me, what does it mean? And
Yeah,
you start thinking about every single dimension to that issue. And as you said with like Instagram, it's not foolproof, and everyone knows that if you're gonna post something, most people just post the happy side and they leave out like the conflict, the internal conflict, and you just
yeah,
assume these people are having like beautiful, wonderful lives when deep down inside they are as dynamic as everyone else. They're not always happy all the time. They just post when they feel good,
yeah. And I think
And,
that
and that's not everyone, but
no, yeah,
that is
but
a
I
good
think you've hit
thing.
the nail on the head. It's like you're not supposed to be happy all the time. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think a lot of people think that the key to happiness is to be happy all the time, and that's it. You've achieved it, and it's like most of the time, like no,
yeah.
it's okay to be like down, some days.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But
And but I love seeing people do like put their talents up. Like you like to cook, so every now and then you'll put like whatever you've cooked that day, and
yeah, I should probably do that
I
more
can
often.
see it.
But
Yeah, I mean, I could see it, and I'm like, man, I would love to try like garlic butter. I want to put that on everything too, man. I would like to try that out. Or,
yeah,
but when I started drawing, I think the first post I put up, I was like really nervous about it. But
yeah,
the response I got from some people started drawing, sending me their stuff, and I was like, oh my God, just the fact that people were drawing on the back of that, like I love art. I love seeing what they were
that you
doing, and
have
I
that
felt really good
inspiration.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even if it's
yeah,
just like
yeah,
a few people, like three people, two people, one person, like
exactly.
it's enough.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, even one person's enough. Because then I sit back and I go, man, I want to draw more.
Hmm.
Are they trying to compete with me? Because like now I need to catch up. Like that sort of stuff.
Competition breeds,
I love it.
diversity.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Most definitely.
yeah, no, we thought we'd try, a little less like structured podcast talking about world news and all that stuff. Like rather than doing that, we just talk
Yeah.
a bit more personal. So if you liked it,
Yep.
let us know. That's pretty much going to be the end of it.
And please let us know where you sit on your yin and yang
Yeah,
fence.
are you
I'm
like more like Mark or me?
or sitting somewhere in between.
Mm. All right,
Absolute pleasure, man.
thanks guys. See ya.
Well, see you later.